you got that pregnancy back pillow.
I know.
You got that pregnancy back pillow.
I'm way better. Hold
you
on.
put that shit right, your mid back, you're like, you got the Diet Coke. My man's, dude, when are you expecting?
Hold on, let me do the math on that.
Yeah. So, brother, how was your weekend, man?
It was good, man. I went golfing. Hold on, let me finish chilling real quick. I went golfing with my buddies, and I forgot my shoes.
Okay.
So I went barefoot, and let me tell you something. Greatest experience of my life. Okay, maybe not of my life.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But it was pretty fucking amazing. Like it was like skinny dipping, dude. Like picture like skinny dipping, like just in the planet. That's what it felt. I was just like skinny dipping
because
in
the grass is just so
Dude.
well kept, or
It was unbelievable.
well manicured.
Yeah, it was like walking. Like the fairways were like walking on carpet. You know, we played at Rum Point.
Yeah.
So Rum Point's nice. And I talked to some other guys who golf with no shoes, and like I didn't know this was a thing except for my favorite football player, Jim McMahon.
Yeah.
Plays with no shoes.
Yeah.
So he's like the only guy that I've ever known that plays with no shoes. But I actually talked to some other people about it, and they said there's like some kind of energy that you get from the earth when you play golf with no shoes. So there's this whole movement of barefoot golfers, and I think I might have just joined it. I mean, it's pretty. I'm telling you, man, it's amazing. I know Maurice golfs. Maurice, you better try that, bud, because it's.
So you're saying
changed my life.
You're saying that it could have changed your life. Like this could.
No, I think it did.
You,
it did change my
how
life.
you golf going forward.
Yeah, I don't know that I always golf like that, but I will definitely do it again. There's.
I mean,
no
but
doubt.
what if your shit's all messed up? Like you got to get a pedicure though. If you're gonna go out there, dude, you're gonna go out busting with the boys. Your toes can't be jacked up, dude.
I'll be getting the petties anyhow. I like the petties.
Yeah, but you can't be jacked up. Your feet can't be jacked up out on the course, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I try to trim them up. I don't know. Actually, I take that back. If my wife's watching this, she'll beg to differ. I get some long toenails, boy, some daggers.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to cut. You have to manicure them or pedicure them before you come out, because I mean, even if you are with the boys, they're still gonna clown you.
Yeah.
If you got them Fred Flintstone feet. You know what I mean? You gonna, dude. I mean, the whole beach week, we clown on each other's feet.
Yeah.
All beach week.
Yeah.
It's just what we do. It's like the easiest thing to look down at your boy's foot and be like, "Oh my gosh, dude." I mean, hey, listen, barnacle boy, you got barnacles on your feet. You know, like it was rough all week. I mean, that's why it's like,
Hey, if it's hammer time, hide your toes, right?
yeah, that's what. That's why it's like. Man, dudes are rougher than women, I think, sometimes on everything.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're tough on each other, man. So
I do like pedicures though. Pedicures are I get them probably a couple
hot
times.
take, man.
A couple times a year.
Pedicures, though. I mean, when they shave the calluses off, though, it's rough for like a week after on the blankets.
Yeah.
Man. You get stuck on the blankets and everything, man. It's a little. You gotta keep the pedicuring up.
I find myself getting splinters more often when I get a pedicure, because I think my feet are more tender, so they're more susceptible to like getting a splinter. I think that's why kids get splinters more than adults.
Well, because they've shaved your foot down basically.
Yeah.
Like our feet have calluses all on them. Like, you know, the sides and the fronts and everything is men. So we have not delicate feet. Like we can walk on anything.
Yeah.
You know, funny story. I'll tell you. This is kind of fucked up, but funny as well. My dad will probably get a chuckle, but also hate hearing this. So my dad, he has type 2 sugar diabetes. So, you know, with people with that, their feet, typically you kind of lose a little bit of feeling in your feet, right?
Okay.
So like, it's funny because my dad will persist that he still has feeling in his feet.
Yeah.
He'll be like, no, I still do. So one day we're at the beach and it's probably like 98 degrees, right? Like it's, you know, it's Nick Lachey outside, okay? Needless to say, it's Nick Lachey outside. So he starts like, you know, I'm like walking in flip-flops on the sand.
Yeah.
And it's so hot. Like, it's still so hot. You can feel how hot it is. You're like, oh my gosh. You're like,
you're looking for that shadow.
yeah. So my dad is just just stroking across the beach like no problems.
Because he can't feel it?
Dude, he can't feel shit.
He's got that lidocaine on his feet, right?
Feel shit. And he's looking at everyone as we're like, and he's just walking across and we're like, Dad, do you feel that? He's like, oh yeah, it's hot.
Somebody put that delay spray on his foot.
He can't feel shit. Like, he actually got off of the beach. You know how you get off and they have those little things where you wash your feet on the shower. Like the shower.
Yeah.
And he stepped onto like the blacktop. And I joke like it's kind of like a comedy scene. Like I was like, man, what's burning? Like, because he just put his foot on there and he didn't realize how hot it was. It was like smoking how hot it was.
That's amazing.
And he just didn't. He was not phased. I'm like, Dad, your foot is literally burning. What are you
couldn't
doing?
feel it.
No, but it's so funny because he'll swear to me, like, no, I can feel it. I can feel it. No, I can feel it. Like, you can't feel your foot. What are you talking about? Literally, the whole family's running across the beach, and he's just like, it's a nice day at the beach, guys. What are you doing?
You got that diabetes foot.
Yeah, the diabetes.
Got that Wilford Brimley toe.
That's why I said it's funny, because it's like, if you see it, it's just, and plus, his feet are all mangled too. Like,
yeah,
don't let him play.
All our feet are mangled.
As men, because
men.
we shove them. If you play athletics and stuff,
Yeah.
with the cleats and stuff like that, I mean, we were jamming them in and out of cleats at a young age.
Yeah.
So, and plus, when you grow up middle class, I'm gonna say middle class.
Yeah.
You ain't getting new cleats every year.
Dude, it's,
Daddy, you don't get it all, Daddy.
Nah,
you ain't getting them all, Daddy. For the first for 3 years of youth league, because your feet stay relatively close. You're shoving them in those shoes, baby.
It's funny you said that though, because I grew up with old Italian aunts and a grandmother, and they grew up poor, and so they couldn't afford shoes, so their shoes were always too small.
Yeah.
So when they would take their shoes off, of course they're in their 70s and 80s at this point when I was a kid, or maybe 60s, whatever. But when they would take their shoes off, their toes would always be crossed. And so if you ever around me with my shoes are off, I will always cross my toes, because I've my whole life have mimicked them.
Yeah.
It's because I always wanted to impersonate them.
Yeah.
So I have this habit where I'll keep crossing my toes because I had these Italian grandmothers or aunts that couldn't afford shoes when they were kids. That's where it's from.
Well, that's that's like common practice. Like you didn't get new shoes until you needed them.
Yeah.
Until either the soles were worn out or literally your foot was busting out of them. So just as a kid, I mean, you got shoes once a year, but when you're a kid, your feet could grow twice.
Oh yeah.
I mean, your feet, when you're growing, your feet could grow. So it was always funny because my parents would be like, "Yeah, you get one pair." You getting one. So you could be in that bitch your feet are just clogged up, bro, at the top, man. It's what it is.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
So you ready to get into this?
Yeah, you ready to get started?
But before we do, man, let's talk about the merch. We got some merch finally. Actually, it's a trial run.
Trial run merch.
Yeah, trial run merch.
Tell them about what we got.
So we obviously got the prop culture trucker hat, I guess, the pop-up hat.
Yeah, the pop-ups.
And then we just, if you haven't been following us, we've got this one episode that we did probably about a month ago, and we got just off the rails. Somehow we started talking about bowel movements and cigarettes and how they correlate, and we got on a big Newport kick, and we kind of came up with the slogan, keeping it Newport 100. So we've got the Keeping It Newport 100 hats. They're going to be probably on shelves, probably dead stock or somewhere like that.
Soon enough.
In the future, soon enough. So, us, we keep it in Newport 100 around here. And speaking of keeping it Newport 100, well, allow me to say welcome back to the Prop Culture Podcast. I am your host, Matt Trader, and to my left, as always, is my man, my tag team partner in crime, Mr. Shane Snoots. And today, ladies and gentlemen, y'all know what time of the year it is. That's right, football is in the air.
Yeah.
And there ain't too many people that love football more than me and Mr. Shane Snoots. So today we're going to talk a little foosball, a little Bobby Boucher for y'all, ladies and gentlemen, right here on Prop Culture. That's pretty much it. Shane, ready to get into it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All
right, man. So what's up?
Let's jump into it, dude. I mean, I'm excited this year, and I've told you, I've stressed this a million times. Sports betting is now legal in the state of Maryland, which is big for me. I love gambling.
Yeah.
And I love sports. So they've merged the two things that I love. Maybe not the most.
Yeah.
I think food might be number one. But
You ever watch Seinfeld?
yeah, but I never got into it, man.
All right, I won't use the reference, but if you ever watch it, just remember George Costanza's trifecta. All right, that's all I'm going to say. Now go back to what you were saying.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Is Seinfeld really that funny?
Yeah.
Is that a hot take?
Yeah, I'm obsessed with it.
Dave, have you seen Seinfeld? Is it funny?
Yeah.
It is?
It's very dry comedy.
It's dry. So it's not like...
You cannot watch Seinfeld. You can't watch Seinfeld at any other point but from beginning to the very end.
Okay.
You come into it at any other point, you're going to be like, it doesn't make any sense. Because the show always comes full circle. most well-written.
So is it like Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Well, it's the whole, that wasn't Curb Your Enthusiasm before Curb Your Enthusiasm was
Right,
that.
that's what
it was all Larry David. It's the same concept.
Yeah.
But anyway, get back to sports betting because we're going, yeah.
Well, listen, I got off topic just because everyone talks about Seinfeld. It's like,
Dude, all right. So I used to be the same way. I had a college roommate that was from New York, was obsessed with Seinfeld, and I hated it. Like, I was just like, Seinfeld's stupid. Like, I was into, like, the 80s and 90s sitcoms of, like, Growing Pains and that stuff. And so one day we're hanging around the dorm room, and the Junior Mint episode came on. And if you watch the Junior Mint, go Google it. And ever since that episode, I have been hooked. Like, I'm obsessed with Seinfeld. Love it. Absolutely love it.
I'll give it a try. I'll give it a college try.
It's good. All right. Back to sports betting.
Sports betting. So now that it's legal, and football's coming in session.
Yeah.
See, you've paired the two favorite things.
Yeah.
I mean, Sundays are already, for me, capitalized by the pregame show, everything else. And I have to say that I'm way more interested in football now than ever because Buffalo's actually good.
Yeah.
When they sucked, it was hard to be in it, because you're watching everybody else. But, I know for me, I love sports betting, and your thing is fantasy.
Yeah, I love fantasy football, man. I've been doing it a long time.
How'd you get into it?
Whew. Well, actually, my love of fantasy sports started with rotisserie baseball.
Yeah.
Back in I grew up around an older cousin who was 8 years older than me, and his dad and all his friends played. They actually started all this at the Elks Club right here in Salisbury years and years ago. So when I was 7, 8 years old in the 80s, they were running rotisserie baseball drafts.
Yeah.
So by the early 90s, I'm like 10, 11, 12 years old. I'm now doing the rotisserie baseball drafts with them. Yeah. And then around 94, we started migrating into fantasy football from rotisserie baseball. And by about 98, 99, we got it down to where, my main league that I've been in, the first year on record is really 98, though the roots go back to 94. But I'll tell you, man, when we were doing it back then, you had to keep stats basically out of the newspaper and a notebook.
Yeah,
so that's how we track stats. So, on Monday or Tuesday, the commissioner would go in, track all the stats, and then you might not know who won your game until Thursday because they had to do the math on it. It was crazy, man, back then because
isn't it? I mean, in the world that we live in today, I can only imagine how hard that is. Because it's when we watch, for me playing fantasy football, your game is done as of Monday night.
Yeah.
Right? And finalized points. And sometimes they do change just because the NFL ruling on certain things.
Yeah.
Like if they rule it a fumble and I've had people lose. Actually, I've lost games where they've deemed it a fumble from this player or, where it wasn't a fumble deemed in the game because they even though they got the ball back and then you lose 7 points and then you lose the game, you're like, what the fuck? So I've had that happen, which is crazy to think that you would have to wait until Thursday.
Yeah. Fractional points makes that more likely. When you use fractional points, it can change things by, fraction. So at one little, stat correction on a Thursday can change your whole game, which makes things cumbersome or difficult to take.
I know because, when Bob first started at our office, he talked to us about the fantasy league that you guys have.
Yeah.
And I noticed you had a lot of different things.
Yeah.
You had a lot of different. Let me put it this way. For most fantasy leagues, they're just, you go on, you sign on, we're NFL.com, ESPN.com, you sign up, you get your boys, play for a couple $100, whatever. But you had crafted a whole system around making it so everyone's involved every week, all the way up until the end of the year. And you guys play for some pretty decent,
Yeah, we're $500 $500 a man. It's not bad.
But you have pretty decent payouts too. Everyone kind of actually you incentivize weekly play.
Yeah.
And not just finishing,
Yeah, weekly is something that definitely keeps everybody pretty much into it all the way to the end. But, a lot of the things that I've done in our leagues they stem from things that I've noticed as flaws in the system over the years. Like one of the things initially is, I remember one year in particular, I had control over basically, I was number one seed.
Yeah.
And I looked down the line, I was like, man, the guy that I'm going to play next week in the 8th seed is actually a tougher matchup than who I would play in the 7th seed. So I threw my game in the last week of the season to play the 7th seed, so I had to play the 8th seed. Well, because of that, one of my other buddies gets knocked out of the playoffs because he needed me to beat that guy.
Yeah.
And he was mad. He wouldn't talk to me for like 2 months.
Yeah.
He's still sour about it like 10, 15 years later, right? So I started trying to figure out ways to, because the thing that sucks about fantasy is that's the only sport, unless you can give your owners a bye, right? That's the only sport that you don't have home field advantage. Right, you're really on an even playing field. You could dominate all year and then have to play somebody probably even with a better matchup than you at the 8th seed.
I don't even think when you say a bye that gives you. I think the byes in the playoffs, the teams that have the byes are the worst off because your players are still playing.
Yeah, well, you get a bye so you don't have to play somebody, right? But
I mean, it's typically the week that Adrian Peterson had the career game, 250 yards. It's like it always how it happens is your workhorse has that stud game for you.
Yep.
And then the next week you walk it. It always feels like fantasy, to me at least, fantasy football mimics real life. Those teams on the bye week typically always come out flat. Like the teams that get the bye, they have the best play. They have the best statistical play. Typically, they have one of the top. Their team from head to toe. They don't have the middle of the ring guys where there's a matchup where you have the number 5 quarterback, the number 5 running back, where they're built very strong. They got number one. They got 2 number 1 guys that have carried them all year. And typically, when you play them, they're playing a terrible matchup because by then you have typically terrible teams who are still competing. If the number 1 guys, if Devante Adams and Josh Jacobs are out there and they played for 2 different teams last year, you have top five running back, top 3 wide receiver last year, Devante Adams. That's a terrible matchup when you have somebody who's coming in who's now hitting their stride with they have top 5 almost everything across the board. I
mean, there's always my thing is I've always tried to remove the luck element to it and protect the guys who have done well all season. But so what I came up with was a system called the home field advantage system. So if you were the number 1 seed, you play the 8th seed. Because they're 14-team league. Actually, my other league's 16 teams. But you play the 8th seed with a 14-point advantage. So you get a 14-point advantage going into that game. So you've already got that. And then the 2nd seed gets a 7-point advantage. So you have something. And then that, in my mind, prevents that number 1 seed guy from not wanting to throw his game to get a better placement in the playoffs, which could in turn knock somebody out. I'll tell you another thing I've done, too. So I feel like have fixed, and if the NFL is listening to this, and any sports listening to this, I think I've fixed the entire situational tanking for sports. So what I do is, there's 8 playoff teams that make our playoffs every year, right?
Yeah.
So usually when you draw for fantasy to see where you're going to pick the following year, you either pick out of a hat or some kind of creative way to pick who's gonna draw.
Worst team
worst team versus first. Worst first gets the first pick. Well, what I decided to do was instead of giving the last place team the number 1 pick, I give my 9th place team the number 1 pick because the 9th place team is the team that just misses the playoffs. So what that does is if you're out of it by week 12, 13, you can sit there and look and say, well, what reason do I have to play? Well, number 1, you get weekly money. But number 2, every time you win a game, you could move that much further up in the spot of the next year's draft pick. So there's incentive for that. So you can't tank because if you win, you get a better pick.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I've done that's been absolutely great. I mean, that was probably one of the best things I've ever done as far as being a commissioner was doing that because it keeps people involved and there's no tanking. Not that we have to worry about that anyhow. I mean, we got a lot of guys in our leagues that are I feel like they have a lot of integrity and they wouldn't throw their game, but that really prevents it.
Well, what do you think this year? Like, what's your thoughts on this year? What's this year look like for you in terms
as far as what?
Who's the
players and stuff?
Yeah, like who's the top guy coming off the board?
I guess everybody's saying Jonathan Taylor. With their offensive line and Matt Ryan, everybody's going to go Jonathan Taylor. To me, I mean, that's always difficult, man, because injuries are so prominent. No, I mean, injuries are just so prominent with running backs, man. It's tough to. Well, I'm not saying I wouldn't take them, you know.
I mean, Derrick Henry. I mean, that's what. But I feel like every running back has a 3-year time frame.
Yeah.
Where Derrick Henry was clearly by far the best running back the last 3 years. Would that be?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I think running backs typically have a 3-year, like in fantasy at least, before it really the injuries start to compound.
If you took his aggregate, you'd have to say Henry. But then you have McCaffrey that had the one super year. I mean, he had the most catches since probably LaDainian Tomlinson.
What, he had 2,500 yards all purpose or something?
Yeah, it was insane. You know, and then Jonathan Taylor obviously last year had an amazing year. Cooper Kupp had an incredible year as a wide receiver.
Is he going to repeat? Do you think who? So if you're drafting, who are you taking top? First overall if you're in the first spot.
Man,
the catbird seat as they call it.
I mean, you put me on the spot. I don't know, man.
Are you going with the average draft pick of Jonathan Taylor? It's safe.
Man, that's tough. I don't know, man. I have to get into that spot. Honestly, to be honest with you, man, to be completely honest with you, I used to start studying for fantasy in May. Yeah. In May, I would be on it. Now, honestly, man, I don't really start looking at stuff until probably the next couple weeks because I want to see the way things shake out with injuries, with training camps and things like that. I probably would have to go Taylor just because of his offensive line. So the way I am is I don't draft running backs based on talent. Really, I really don't. I draft offensive lines more than I draft running backs. And if your offensive line is shit, I'm probably going to stay away from you. I'll put you on a do not draft list. Another thing I don't do is I really don't like following the rankings to a T because those rankings are going to be 50% right. Next year, those rankings are not going to look like that.
Well, remember, David Johnson went number one. David Johnson, was it 6 years ago?
Yeah.
David
I was
Johnson
not a fan of David Johnson at all.
And he ended up being, he was a scrub. I mean, he was injured by week 2, I think it was. And then just when he came back, he was nothing. He was nobody.
But I mean,
running backs are a hard thing to draft, but I think wide receivers are a hard thing to predict unless you have a top 10 quarterback throwing them the ball.
Yeah.
Devante Adams this year has Derek Carr. The jury's still out on Derek Carr.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the jury's still out on him. He's a good quarterback. Is he great? Is he elite level great?
Here's my thing though. Why are you going to draft Devante Adams at that price when you could get Renfro, who's going to at a premium price 4 or 5 rounds later probably?
Yeah. Well, see, that's why I'm saying I don't know. And his touches are going to go. He went from when you go from Aaron Rodgers to Derek Carr. I mean, are we really comparing the two?
See, Adams is a shiny object, right? I'm looking at who's
Waller's definitely gonna Waller the tight end's he's definitely gonna increase touches.
Yeah,
because it's gonna open up the middle of the field.
The real question is, did Alan Lazard just become Devante Adams, or the guy Dubos, the new rookie? Did those guys just become Devante Adams? Because you can get them at a premium, right? They got Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball to him.
He's not Tom Brady.
Who?
Rodgers is not Brady.
Oh, I'm a Tom Brady guy, so I agree with that.
Because Rodgers doesn't have the capability of turning a pumpkin into an actual.
Well, who was there before Adams? Because they've had a lineage of good wide receivers that have filled that spot.
They had Jordy Nelson.
They
had Randall Cobb.
Yep, Randall Cobb. I mean, he's had the next guy up.
Well, they had Donald Driver. Greg Jennings. But they've drafted well at the position. These are not they've drafted pretty decently at the position. It's not like they didn't draft well at it. They drafted pretty well at the position. But I think Brady was always able to take, the 8th round, not even an undrafted a white guy who's 5'3" and turn him into a stud.
Yeah.
At least in fantasy too. I mean, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman. I mean, those guys were always. And then the year they won the Super Bowl.
Belichick created a position.
Don't say Belichick. Belichick is showing that he has nothing without him.
I love Tom Brady, but you got to give Belichick some credit. Come on, man.
Let's clear the air on this. All right, we're looking, dude.
Mac Jones was pretty good last year.
Josh Allen has hung 28 consistently.
Yeah.
On Bill Belichick without Tom Brady. 28, and he's a defensive coach.
Yeah.
You do understand the blowout that we gave them in the playoffs. Okay.
Now we're getting to the root of the problem, ladies and gentlemen.
Let me just put it this way. Let me put it this way. Tom Brady, and I'll go on record saying this, Tom Brady made Bill Belichick who he is, not the other way around.
I don't know about that, buddy.
And
I mean,
listen,
I love Tom Brady.
Statistics, hey, over time it will show Bill Belichick will never be back to the Super Bowl without Tom Brady. He's not going.
That's a pretty bold statement.
Oh, he's not going back. I mean, there's a 100% chance he's not going back. I mean, Mac Jones can be a decent, serviceable quarterback. He's not Tom Brady.
You really want to talk about? He's listening. Belichick is listening to you right now. He hears you, Shane. You really want to talk about Belichick like that?
I hope he does.
Bill, just for the record, Bill.
I hope he does.
That wasn't. I didn't. Matt Trader did not say that. That was Shane Snoots.
When Josh hangs
Sorry, Mr.
42
Belichick.
on him again this year, okay? Josh is going to put 42 on him again, all right? And there's his schematics. It does not work anymore. That system has shown that it does not work anymore. No one wants to play in it, and it doesn't work. It worked because Brady was selfless.
Yeah.
It worked because Brady was the team captain. Brady was the rah-rah guy that glued everyone together.
What was the Patriots record last year?
10-7?
They made the playoffs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they made the playoffs.
I'm just...
Hey, hold on, Daddy. They made the playoffs and then proceeded to get that ass beat down.
Who'd they play?
They went Buffalo. Buffalo, and it was a massacre.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a massacre. They didn't even score until the
Buffalo's a better team. I don't disagree with that.
No, but it's not about.
But you can't discount Belichick for getting back to the playoffs again.
Is what keeps him in the games. It's not. It's the level of talent on the field.
But he's played with. What do you mean? What talent has he had?
Brady has elevated the talent around him. That's the point.
I love Tom Brady.
Come on, man.
I was the guy who said.
I hope we're not.
I was the guy who says that. Honestly, I look at Tom Brady as the GOAT of every athlete for one reason, and that's because everybody always said that Bill Belichick was the reason for his success, and he left, and literally the year after that went to Tampa and won a title without Belichick, while Belichick did nothing. And I always said Brady should have retired that year and dropped the mic.
But hold on.
So I'm not discounting that, but to sit there and discount Belichick, he's going to playoffs with Mac Jones. That's what he's doing right now. I mean, he just went to playoffs.
But what is he doing?
What do you mean? He's going to playoffs with Mac Jones.
Hold on.
That's what he's doing.
Do we get? I didn't know that this league basis, because Buffalo went to 4 back-to-back Super Bowls and lost them. Do we get trophies for that? Because I'm just checking in. Like, just let me know how we're ranking the system here. You don't get points to go to the playoffs.
Yeah, but he's competing against himself. Belichick's competing against himself.
No, he's not. Not at this point.
What do you mean?
He's competing against Brady.
Okay.
He is
all right,
competing
that's fair.
against Brady.
That's fair.
If you think that
that's
there
fair.
is not an active...
No, that's a fair
And guess
statement.
what?
That's
Brady will
fair.
retire at the end of this year, okay? Brady will retire at the end of this year, okay? And yes, Bill might be able to have more years of longevity.
Yeah.
But I can guarantee you, give it 2 more years of mediocrity in New England, he will not be the coach there.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen then. It's just not. And listen, they're going into the season, they don't have an offensive coordinator. That's the genius of Bill Belichick. He doesn't have offensive coordinators now that Josh McDaniel left.
Yeah, he's his own coordinator now.
He has coaches.
Well, yeah, I just heard
Come
that.
on, Dad.
You can't discount Bill Belichick,
man.
man. You can't discount the man. Look what
This fucking dude. This guy is
I tell you what, the most talent that he ever had.
Lawrence Taylor was the most talent he had.
No. I'm talking about the most
defensive
talent
side
he
of the
ever had on the offensive side of the ball from a skill position year was when Brady had Randy Moss.
Correct.
And they didn't win it that year.
They
right?
went undefeated.
They went undefeated, but they didn't win it. Right? So
that's because there was.
So you're discounting that year though, because they didn't win it. So you got to discount that year, right?
No.
That's what you're saying.
We're discounting the year, the fact that there was a team that had a play that God himself came down and put that ball in that
Doesn't
man's
matter.
hand.
He still lost. Can't do it.
Correct.
Based on your philosophy, you got to discount that.
But hold on. Who plays defense? Who coaches defense? Not Brady.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, Brady doesn't coach defense, dude. Hey, Brady put him in the game. And I hate Brady. I hate Brady. Do you understand the passion that he has tortured me with for basically half of my life? He has literally tortured me as a Patriots quarterback.
Here's the real question. Here's a better question. Would Tom Brady exist without Bill Belichick? That's the real question. Would he exist? Would he have been drafted 6th round by any other team, come in, been as successful? fumble play rule? I love Brady. That's a fair question.
I think the question. Well, here's the thing. He had Charlie Weiss as an offensive coordinator. If you remember, he had a couple different good OCs. That came out of there. Bill O'Brien, Charlie Weiss, a couple different ones, and Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
So he's had good tutelage bringing him up because Bill Belichick. We have to remember, Bill Belichick is not the end all be all for Brady.
But
if Brady, his bread and butter, and this is the truth. If you watch the documentary, because if you watch the documentary based on, it's called Wide Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on the Bills losing the Super Bowl to the Giants.
Yeah.
Bill Parcells was the head coach. Bill Belichick, defensive coordinator, right? Mm-hmm. The philosophy that was put in was by Bill Belichick was basically keep Jim Kelly and the Bills off the field.
Yeah.
And we will beat them. If you keep them off the field long enough, we can beat them. So basically, Bill Parcells said, we're just going to run the ball down their throat, not make any mistakes, keep Jim Kelly off the field. Because we have to slow down the offense. So that was their biggest threat it wasn't Lawrence Taylor. They were like, these guys are going to score.
Yeah.
We just have to make it so they can't score enough points. They outscore us. That was Bill Belichick's genius, is saying, I'm going to come up with a schematic plan to basically slow them down. He's not an offensive guy. He's not an offensive genius. He's a defensive genius. So to give him the credit for Brady, that's taking away from Brady's greatness.
So
I no longer can take away from his greatness at this point. He has earned the level of respect of where he's at today.
If you want to say that, Brady's clutch gene is the reason for them winning so many titles, I probably won't argue that. But the fact that Bill Belichick took Matt Castle, he was successful with Matt Castle. He built Jimmy Garoppolo, and Jimmy Garoppolo got traded for a couple first-round draft picks, and he hasn't been great, but he's been serviceable, right?
But
now Mac Jones comes along. He won with Jacoby Brissett. I mean, the man
he didn't win with Jacoby Brissett.
Well, he wasn't terrible. He wasn't terrible.
He split games.
He wasn't terrible with him.
Okay, Buffalo went into New England and beat him.
Yeah, but
that's again another game I remember.
He wasn't terrible with them.
But you're giving more credit to the system in terms of.
I think the system's amazing.
But the player itself, Brady is the one who made the system. Without Brady, there is no system. Why do people not go there? Why are star players not going there anymore?
Because they don't sign star players. That's how they work. That's how they roll.
But they got Randy.
They got Randy. Randy was on the back. Randy was on the back, and nobody would take Randy.
But they got Stephon Gilmore.
And I'm a Vikings fan. I love Randy Moss. That's my man.
They got Stephon Gilmore, stud corner.
Yeah.
They got all these players because they realize the Patriot way it's about them taking pay cuts and not getting paid.
The Patriots aren't wasting money on big contracts.
And no, but Bill Belichick's contract's still the same.
Yeah.
He's getting paid, Daddy.
Yeah.
He ain't taking no pay cuts. Tom Brady was taking pay cuts.
Yeah.
Okay? To keep players there. And why did he end up leaving? He was like, wait, you guys aren't spending any money on the offensive side. Like, dude, I'm taking pay cuts. Bill Belichick's still getting paid, and I'm still putting a good team on the field.
Yeah.
He's still producing points. And the team literally was garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, their defense is garbage.
But Belichick created he's created so many schemes over the years. He basically created a position, the short little white receiver. You know what I mean? He changed the game running the football to short passes.
But who threw him the ball, though? Who's throwing the ball?
I'm not discounting Brady.
That's like saying that Michael Jordan isn't. They're saying that's the argument of saying Jerry Krause is the reason why Michael Jordan is successful. It's not. Michael Jordan is the player.
All right, so let me ask you a question. What was more impressive? Jordan leaving, retiring to go to baseball, and then coming back and winning 3 more, or Brady leaving Belichick and winning 1 the following year in Tampa? What do you think's the more impressive feat?
Well, I think 3 in a row. You can't. I mean, that's.
But 7's better than 6.
Yeah, but
that was the 7th.
I think it's hard to sit here and argue.
Right, and that's
7's good luck, right, and 6 is the devil's number.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I as much as I don't want to agree with, Jordan's impressive because he came back and did 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Brady did it in a sport where you shouldn't do that.
That's exactly.
Brady did it in a sport. So they're 2 different things because physically he was 42.
Yeah.
42, right when he won the Super Bowl? When he won the last one, was he 42 or 43? Because he's 40. He just turned 45.
I mean, he's amazing.
So he did it, but again, all things given, it was a pandemic year. There was no fans in the stands. It was a very wonky year.
Yeah.
So if we're being fair, intellectually fair, as you like to say, there's no fans in the stadium. It was very home field advantage wise to anybody. Like you were playing in a neutral site every game.
Yeah.
So to not take away from that feat, it's still amazing that his first year he brought a team together as a quarterback and won a Super Bowl.
Oh, absolutely.
That is amazing. But I guess you really can't. It's apple and oranges because Michael coming back and winning 3 in a row is very. I mean, to win 3, go play baseball and be like mediocre at it. And then come back and win another 3. And here's the other side. If we'll discount, because we had this argument on the boat when you and Brandon were trying to discount a lot of things. The year he did come back, he came back in the playoffs and they lost to Penny and Shaq.
And Horace Grant.
In the playoffs.
And Horace Grant.
Yes.
Because he didn't have Horace Grant.
And
Horace Grant was on the other team.
And this was a 45-minute blasphemy argument on the boat where this could have ended very poorly. Because
I love Michael Jordan, my favorite athlete of all time. Well, no, Jim McMahon's my favorite athlete of all time, but Michael Jordan's right there with him.
Is he really considered an athlete?
That's my man, dude. I want to get Jimmy Mack on a podcast.
Would we consider Jim McMahon an athlete?
Huh?
Dog, both his knees were broken. Okay, I mean,
he was the heart. Dude, I don't think anybody took a beating like Jimmy McMahon.
He had the stone cold double knee braces on. He popped a lipper in every game. And, I mean, his mullet was impressive.
Dude, real quick, the greatest Jim McMahon story ever. He wears the Adidas headband.
Yes.
And Pete Rozelle comes out, and it's like, you can't wear a headband with any kind of branding on it. The following week, McMahon shows up with a headband that has Rozelle on it. It's like, tell me to take that off, motherfucker. Dude. That's my man. I love Jimmy Mack, baby.
He fit that team's. But, again, I mean, Jim McMahon won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He's not in the Hall of Fame.
No. I don't know. Jimmy, I don't know. I should know that he's my favorite player. He should be. He was the man at BYU.
Dude,
that's BYU.
Come on.
All right. Anyhow, so look. Let's
Jim McMahon in the Hall of Fame.
All right, let's bring it back. So define some semblance on this conversation here, right? So to come together a little bit. We'll say probably without Belichick, Brady may never exist. Not saying he wouldn't, but he might never exist. But without Brady's clutch gene, Belichick might and the Patriots probably wouldn't have as many titles. Is that fair?
The first title.
Is that fair to move on?
I'll give you one without. I'll give you one.
All right.
I'll give you the first title, 2001, was when he first came in and played. The defense won that Super Bowl.
Oh, well, that's because that was the greatest defensive scheme of all time against the Saints.
Okay.
I mean, against the Rams, excuse me. Yeah.
But after that, it was all Brady.
Yeah.
So 5 more after that was because Brady just had the clutch gene in him.
Okay.
And without that, they don't win this.
So there's no compromise at all, no apology. You're like my mother.
No, I'm all
You're like my wife.
I'm TB12 right now, which pains me to say. Punch me in the face after we get off the podcast.
All right, let's move on.
I hate saying
So
that.
here's a question for you. What do you think about the Dolphins being a threat to Buffalo this year?
I mean, Tua has a noodle arm. I mean, we could sit here and talk all this shit we want. I mean, Tyreek Hill is the fastest guy in sports or whatever, but you have to get him the ball.
So I'm not a big fan
You got to get him the ball, Daddy.
I'm not a big fan. Well, the thing is about the Dolphins.
Behind the line, you going to run screens the whole time?
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's been working for the Patriots for all these years.
Waddle and him. I'll put money on this. If there is a line out on this, and I'd love to see the line, the receivers with the most after the catch, yards after catch, will probably be Hill and Waddle.
Yeah.
Because that's all their offense is going to be. It's going to be 5-yard outs.
Well, so my thing is with the Hill.
5-yard ins, 5-yard outs. Because Tua cannot throw further than 15 yards.
But it was smart to get him some skill players. But it was even more smart to get him some offensive linemen. I mean, their offensive line was what was holding them up last year.
But he's still trash.
They had 2 big offensive line
He's a trash can.
I'm not saying he's not, but we don't know what he's like with a good offensive line. That can overcome anything.
I mean, dude, Listen, I appreciate your optimism. You know what?
I'm not a Dolphins fan.
I like to say I'm a half full kind of guy, but you, my friend,
well,
you are 3/4 full.
I know. I
because
think
you will not. You will. Y'all know he's pretty decent, man. Why you're being rough on him, dude. Tua's trash.
Okay, well,
dude, they put Ryan Fitzpatrick. They were pulling him out of games and putting Ryan Fitzpatrick.
All right, so let's make a bet. You're a betting man, right? Let's make a bet. And I'm not a huge Tua fan. I'm not saying he's Patrick Mahomes because he's not. Although Tyreek Hill tried to say he was, right?
Yeah.
But all right, what do you think? Let's do an over under on Tua's stats this year. We'll bet it right now, $100.
So
we'll bet a Newport 100, crisp Newport 100.
So what do you think? Are you
I don't know. Give me
over 4,000 yards or under?
Oh. I don't know. I don't think he's going 4,000 yards.
Well, you said he's got Hill.
I mean, 4,000 yards that's a fucking hell of a number, bud.
That's not, dude. I mean, Josh Allen.
What's the average yards per quarterback?
Dude, 40.
Let's set it per top 10 quarterbacks.
Yards is nothing nowadays. They're throwing.
I don't know, man. What about touchdowns?
What about 3,000 yards? Over or under 3?
All right, I'll take over 3,000.
So you say
I'll take over 3,000.
But you won't
I'll take over 3,000. Well, it's easy. I'm getting 3,000 yards.
Yeah, because by default, Tyreek Hill will run the ball like a running back.
I'll take over 3. If you're going to give me 3,000, I'll take that.
Lateral passes.
Hey, look, man.
Throwing the ball.
Look, man. I'm a smart man. I'll take 3,000 is better than 4,000 on my side if I'm taking over.
Yeah, I'll take the under on it, and the reason why is because he won't finish the season.
Okay, well that's fair.
He has the Bo Jackson hip injury.
Yeah.
He has the Bo Jackson hip injury. He can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
And the fact that you think defenses will not figure out, like, hey, guys, just put 10 in the fucking box, okay? Just play down and play press because guess what? You know what? They're not – Tua can't throw it deep. Who's he going to throw too deep? Just put a safety back there.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Dude, he can't throw it deep.
I think you got Jalen Waddle. You got Tyreek Hill. You got Mike Gesicki. You got 2 new offensive linemen.
Bro, you have an arm.
And here's another thing. Their defense, see, this is what pissed me off about the Brian Flores thing. Brian Flores had them boys playing good football last year. He did. Them boys played good football. And I don't know, man. I still don't think he should have been fired. I think that's bullshit, and I will stand by that. So I think they got a solid defense, all right? I'm not a fan of trading as much as they did for Tyreek Hill, but their biggest need was offensive linemen, and they satisfied that in free agency. So they really didn't need the draft picks, although they need them now because they just got hammered on Tom Brady.
I'm not
Sean
sold on
Payton.
Tyreek Hill wasn't a top. So this is again a hot take, but if you're going to sit here and say, was Tyreek Hill top 5? Was he a top 5 wide receiver last year?
Yeah, Tyreek Hill's arguably the greatest skill player
top 5. So
in the past
your top 5.
5
where
years
does he go
or longer.
At? So like top 5. Is
Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, because you got Devante Adams, right?
I'm putting Tyreek Hill.
Devante Adams, Stephon Diggs, right?
I'm not saying Patrick Mahomes. What, top 5 skill players?
Top 5 wide receivers in the NFL.
Top 5 wide receivers? I'm going Tyreek Hill.
You're putting him number 1.
Yeah. Dude, he dominates. Who we got over him?
I mean,
you got Cooper Kupp.
Dude,
I'm talking about consistently.
We're not at Cooper
consistently.
Kupp yet. We're just at 3 people, and you said Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill.
Dude, what route does he run other than fly?
It doesn't matter. He runs touchdowns.
He runs from a fly Hail Mary route.
From a fantasy perspective, I don't want if I'm down, I want Tyreek Hill because he can knock out 4 touchdowns in a half. Dude is amazing.
Yeah, and then the next games, he has 38 yards.
But he had Patrick Mahomes. Well, that's true. That's true.
You do understand statistically he would have a 150-yard game, and the next week he would have 38 yards.
They're all like
and
that.
No tuds.
Who do you like? Who's your number 1 guy?
I mean, obviously, I think Devante Adams is the most skilled wide receiver.
All right, let's make a bet on Devante Adams this year.
Oh no! See,
I'll take the under. No, let's bet another 100.
This is
no. Right now, let's mark this down. So I've got 100 that says that Tua throws over 3,000 yards.
Okay.
All right. So let's set the precedent on touchdowns for Devante Adams this year. What's your over under on it?
Over. I mean, I'll go. I mean, are you taking? I'm assuming you're gonna go under, but I'll go over 12.
All right. I'll go under 12 on Devante Adams.
Dude, that's fucking.
I'll take it.
This is okay. So we're not.
I'll take under. I'm doing under 12.
This is easy 200, dude.
All right.
This is easy.
I'm not saying it's not, but let's mark it down.
I mean, over 12.
I'm not big on Devante Adams right now.
Really?
Yeah, he's what in his 30s. He just lost Aaron Rodgers, Renfro, and Waller. Renfro and Waller. If I was drafting in fantasy football, I won't touch Devante Adams because my price for him is going to be way more expensive than if I could get Renfro down the road or pick up freaking Waller.
I just talked shit about Derek Carr, but I'm going to let you know right now, he also didn't have Renfro or Darren Waller with him last year. He had a squeegee and a mop bucket playing next to him.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you add two actual bona fide pass catchers next to you,
that's fair.
Your numbers should increase.
That's fair.
I mean, when Odell,
that's fair.
Listen, hold on. When Odell went to the Rams last year, his numbers actually increased from when he was with the Browns because Baker Mayfield was trash, but because he was the number 2 guy.
Yeah.
So he's number 2. Now he's not getting the number 1 corner. The same attention is not being paid to him.
My whole thought is he's going to a new system. That's another thing. He's older.
Dude, he's
a year older.
Wide receiver. You run it out and in a dig. Those
I
are
don't
all
know, man.
the
There's
same
there's
routes.
timing. There's continuity with the quarterback.
He played college,
which, in fairness, you could make that point for Tyreek Hill against me with
but
Tua,
he played
right?
college football with Derek Carr.
All right. So either way, let's mark it
So
down.
12.
So
I'm over 12. You're under 12.
See, I'm under 12 on him with touchdowns,
Okay.
and I'm over 3,000 with Tua. Tua, you bastard, you better throw 3,001
He's
yards
not,
this year.
I mean, his hip's gonna give out.
It probably will, but I'm willing to gamble. I'm willing to.
Replacement.
Hey, man. Hey, look, it's football. You know what football does? Football makes fools out of all of us. All of us. We all think we're so smart at football.
I'll have a hot take for you. I'll have a hot take. My hot take of the year is the Detroit Lions mark it down. They will be above 500.
I'm not just okay. I'm with you on that one.
They're above 500.
I think
That's a hot take.
the Lions.
Detroit.
The Lions played tough last year, real tough. I agree with that. And I'm a Vikings fan.
Yeah. MCDC.
All right, hold on a minute. They're taking the bet. All right, so Maurice and Dave in the studio are taking the bet.
Dude, MCDC, dude.
So what are we going to bet them? A free podcast episode.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So yeah. I better shut up. We already know what that would be, right? We're on air. You really want me to talk about that?
Well, yeah.
So you know what that is.
The cost of a podcast episode is what we'll play for.
Yep.
Okay.
Go Lions, baby, and I'm a Vikings fan, but go Lions.
Hey man, hey, listen, they got a good core group of guys, man.
Yeah.
I like their coach.
High school ball.
Hey,
They played tough ball last year. They did.
And their coach is like a high school coach. He just had a press. Did you see his press conference? He said hyenas move out the way.
That's what he said.
He said hyenas move out the way.
I love it. See, I haven't honestly, man. Like
Lions are coming.
I haven't followed a lot. Like I said, I really don't get into my studying for fantasy and everything until probably about a week from now, 2 weeks from now. I don't think fantasy is won at the draft like everybody else thinks. I don't. Fantasy's won in season. Matter of fact, I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they're too tied to the players they're drafted. I did an experiment a couple years ago, right? So I didn't show up to my draft. It was the first time ever in 25 years that I didn't show up to my fantasy draft. And I drafted from our condo at the beach. I drafted 9 players.
And then went auto.
Nope. I said, I don't want nobody else. I'll pick them all up off waivers. Every one of them.
That's a hot take.
So check it out. Because I knew somebody would miss something, right? Well, you know who I'm picking up right after? Because it was missed. Nobody even knew he was going to be the guy. Who's the Jaguars running back that came onto the scene that was the man 2 years ago?
James Robinson?
James Robinson. Nobody saw it, right? So I went down, I looked, I was doing all the research because they didn't know who the running back was going to be. So just soon as everything was going to go through to pick up free agents, I went right in the bathroom at rope walk and was like, boop, had me a starting running back. I wasn't tied to anybody all year. So your players that you draft can very much hijack your lineup, especially if you miss. And there's a lot of people that miss. Smartest guys miss, right? So, but if you have freedom in your lineup, you can make a lot more moves to pick up those waiver guys who are probably going to manifest into what's better than the guys you wasted a 4th and 5th round draft pick on. I'm telling you, man. The draft is a great thing. You can win fantasy leagues, but I don't think people should be tied to their draft players as much as they are, because people will not give them up, dude. They're like, I drafted that guy in the 2nd round. I'm like, well, he's Bobo. He ain't doing shit. He ain't worried. He ain't a 2nd round pick no more.
Let's get the Bobo count up. Can we get a Bobo counter on the references here?
Here's what happens. They give you a cheat sheet that everybody follows, right? Well, when you give somebody the cheat sheet, that's like giving somebody the SAT answers and saying only 50% of these answers are right. You're going to go into the SATs banking that you're going to get.
Are you asking me?
Using them all. That's what I'm saying.
Are you asking
So
me?
I don't follow cheat sheets that much, man. And I will reach.
Me a serious question. I will take that.
You would take 50-50? I probably would too.
Bro,
My
listen, 50-50. It means
I didn't even take.
out
I didn't even take the SAT.
Hey, listen,
I didn't even take the
the
SAT. So yeah, I'm with it.
Hey, Daddy, can't have them all.
I'm with it.
Them all,
I get
Daddy,
it.
can't have them all.
But I'm not a slave to the rankings. I don't like to be tied too much to the guys I draft. And when I draft players, that does become a problem because even I have some attachment problems to those guys.
No, I mean, you're obviously your number one guy is always going to be the one that you spend the most time on because that's the hardest. But after that, I mean, dude, most of the time I just go on auto draft, dude, because auto draft actually picks your team better than you would.
Oh, I can't do that.
No, I mean literally the team.
I don't feel like I can't do auto
draft. The teams that have auto draft on,
yeah,
I'm not kidding you. They end up being the ones that are in the playoff. They make the longest run in the playoffs because they're picking the best available at that position that they need.
I got to have some ownership in my team. I can't do that.
And like, see, here's the thing. Like, our dumb asses will be like, oh, man, we'll pick 13 running backs. You know what I mean? Because we're picking the best player on the board, best available, and not picking position-wise. Because literally we don't want – we're like, man, this is the fifth best wide receiver. Why would we do that when we get the second best running back still available? And you already have 3 running backs. You're like, well, fuck it. I'll use it as trade bait. The problem is people don't want to come off of their because –
So real quick on that. But I will tell you, the year that I only drafted half my team, I dominated all year. I ran the table all the way and then lost in the semifinals. I did lose in the semifinals, but I basically had the best team all year. We're only drafting half my team. So that's a case study, right? But we were talking about drafting players, right? So in our leagues, we fix roster spots because the teams, there's so many teams that we don't want people loading up on one position. So we make you carry so many quarterbacks. We make you carry so many wide receivers. You always have to carry.
But do you have to shrink down? Do you have a period of shrink where it's like after the draft, you have to have 2 quarterbacks? You
always have to. So in my league, it's a 14-team league. You have to carry 3 quarterbacks at all times. So there's no quarterbacks on the waiver. There's none. You might be able to catch the guy's backup if he gets hurt. My other league, you have to carry 2 quarterbacks, right? So there's a couple out there to stream.
So why would you do 3 quarterbacks? I mean, because
it makes the position more valuable at that point. Well, you can stream quarterbacks. Everybody can wait on them. But you can't in our leagues. You got to trade for them if you lose one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you make it so you have to trade for one.
So what I do is a lot of the experts that will tell you to wait on quarterbacks, they can do that in those default leagues. In our leagues, you can't. You can wait and you can get some great value. Don't get me wrong, because if you're following what everybody drafts and you notice that there's 14 teams and there's 13 quarterbacks. Okay, well I don't have to take a quarterback. I can wait on 4 or 5 rounds. Nobody's going to take one, right? So you can get some good value, and there's always one that pans out. What I like to do is I like to take one early instead of going and gambling on the wide receiver or the running back that everybody thinks is going to be good in the 3rd and 4th round. You've been hearing about all summer. That's probably going to get hurt. What I do is I go take me a premium quarterback, and then I'll draft. I'll try to get some value down the line.
Who would that be? Josh Lamar?
Probably Herbert, man. On
Josh
3rd
Lamar.
round quarterback, probably pick him off early. I think Josh Herbert, or was it Herbert? Justin Herbert, yeah.
Well, I think Josh Allen's projected number 1. He's probably top quarterback right now.
Last year,
Fantasy?
But I like. Who was it? Josh Allen? Yeah,
top,
right now.
And I think
him and Mahomes.
Lamar should be up there too, because Lamar's a stud when it comes to fantasy numbers.
Him and Mahomes, but
I think Lamar's going to be. Listen, you know what? This is a hot take too. I think Lamar's going to be. I think he's going to be better than average at passing this year. At passing, better than average, because I think he's heard about it's contract year. He's heard about how bad he is passing. Right?
Yeah.
All they've literally said we're not paying you because of that. So I think damn well. I think he might. I think he really might come out and ball out this year. And here's a hot take: if he feels disrespected by the Ravens, what if he picks up his shit and leaves?
Yeah,
because you didn't offer him a contract.
That's a good point.
Because all season long they've said. So this is an interesting point. When you have an agent and they talk to a team, right? The team will tell the agent all the negative shit about the player of why they don't want to pay him.
Yeah.
So they'll be like, well, Lamar's, he's fragile. He doesn't have an arm. He doesn't have. So they're basically the same team that wants you is discounting you for that reason, right? Well, he's his own agent. Him and his mom. represent himself.
That's crazy.
So think about this. How delicate are negotiations going, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't walk in and steamroll an agent if it's literally Lamar and his mom, and especially your mom. Imagine someone talking shit to your mom about you, about they're not going to pay you. How well is that?
Imagine if he gets paid, that would just devalue all the agents. Be
Well,
like, just
well, that's what I'm saying. That's what's crazy. So Baltimore has to go into a room and walk around this situation of being like,
Yeah.
well, we want to pay Lamar, but
Yeah.
what are they going to say? Your son can't pass. Your son has no arm. He can't read a defense.
Yeah.
They're not going to say that. So the question is, at the end of this year, does Lamar go, you know what, guys, fuck you. I'll go get paid somewhere else because
somebody's gonna pay him.
Because he is. I mean, again, in terms of young quarterbacks, he's top 10 for sure.
Yeah,
he's top 10 for sure. I mean, I'd put him in. What's wild is I saw when they were giving rankings, they put Deshaun Watson in, who hasn't played in a year, over Lamar.
So you're saying they gave him a rub?
Yeah, they gave him the rub down, dude. I mean, they got the gluteus maximus rub, dude. He activated the glutes on him.
Real quick, what I was saying about quarterbacks, what I will do, because you're talking about trade bait, right? So what I'll do is I'll go and draft 2 more premium quarterbacks as quick as I can get them. So now I got 3 stud quarterbacks. Everybody's like, why are you sucking up all the quarterbacks? I'm like, because I'm going to take one of them, and I'm going to get your first round pick or your second round pick before it's over with. Because somebody's quarterback always gets hurt. So I got the trade bait, and I just leverage that right into somebody's, because they have to give it up because there's no quarterbacks on the wire.
Well, don't you think
that's a little trick?
I think that's
a little trick. Leverage. Quarterbacks are leverage.
I think fantasy football is starting to mimic real life football, though, because the dual threat quarterback is actually starting to take over.
Yeah.
Like before, you wanted a Tom Brady, a Peyton Manning that was tall, stationary, but now you're starting to see Herbert, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Lamar. Like a part of your game to be great has to be able to be elusive.
Yeah.
And avoid pressure and be able to run. And if you can't do that, you're obsolete. What's Mac Jones' biggest knock?
Yeah.
Is he's a fucking statue. People don't want statues anymore.
Yeah.
You know, before, what was Mike Vick's?
Brady, your boy's still pretty successful being a statue, though.
Listen, here's the sad part. I fear this of Brady this year, okay? This is the year he shouldn't have came back. Remember when Brett Favre came back?
Yeah.
And he almost died on the field.
Yeah.
Remember? Literally, what do you have, 3 concussions that same year?
I think
he
so,
missed 3 games. That's my fear for Brady is this is the year where people go, oh, you're 45, Daddy? I'm going to blow your helmet off. And it's going to be a problem you're not going to bounce back. The TB12 method, it's not going to work for you this time.
I think Brady was going to go to Miami for real. We know they were tampering with him, and I think that's why they went out and got all those skill players. That's why they went and got the line. They went and got Tyreek Hill, all that.
Well, they said it's proven.
It was going to happen.
It's proven.
It was obvious.
It was proven. I mean, but here's the other side of it. The reason why all of that came out was to take the pressure off the Deshaun case. Because Deshaun Watson, who had 24 cases pending against him, got a 6-game suspension.
Yeah.
And the NFL was like, all right, before we get a public outcry here, let's release this news that Brady and everybody was tampering.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. That was all dropped at the same time. I mean, and basically what they said was Brian Flores has a legitimate case against Miami now.
I think he's got a great case.
Because a legitimate case that they asked him to tank games because they found that they tampered with Peyton and Brady.
I'll say this, and it kind of goes back to the beginning of the show when I was talking about tanking. I have nothing wrong with a team tanking because the system tells you that it benefits you to do so in a lot of ways. I have no problem with that. But how they treated Flores was bullshit. That man had them boys playing good ball. And NFL is very good at distraction. But speaking of public outcry, being distracted and all that, I don't want to get distracted from the fact that we are almost out of time. I know Maurice wants to keep it under a certain time frame. We're going to do that. I do want to have a conversation about how fantasy football and betting or whatever has helped me with my career. Because I think learning that skill at a young age has really helped deal making. But speaking of all that, we got to get out of here. We love to talk to you. You know us. We can talk forever. We get off the rails. Shane, great conversation.
Yes.
Even though you wouldn't find any kind of common ground with me on the Belichick thing. But that's pretty much it. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next time only
on Prop Culture Podcast.
I was like, dude, that was getting ready to go. That conversation